Olha, não me filmem a mim.
Não, é só a seguir é que começa a transmissão? Só a seguir? Não é? Mas eu acho que ia ficar bonito.
Não, fica bem. Não, fica. Tem que ser.
Arranjei uma gaja de 20 anos.
Só começa contigo a falar.
Arranjei uma gaja de 20 anos. E como é que me fazes sinal? Sim?
Não,
Então vamos começar.
faça-se daí.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Faculty of Human Kinetics of the University of Lisbon. And we're going to kick off the Powerpenia pre-conference in a few minutes. I will now give the floor to the Dean of the Faculty, Professor Pedro Passos.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Once again, this is the welcome for the kickoff meeting of the conference, Powerpenia conference, which will take place tomorrow. During this morning, we'll already have a tour around the laboratories of the faculty. And now I think the things will start a little bit closer to what is going to happen during the next couple of days. First of all, I would like to thank to Sandro Freitas and also to Fatima Batista for organizing this pre-conference and also the conference. I would also like to acknowledge to Isabel Moraes for the support that she gave to Sandro. And last but not least, I would like to acknowledge the Câmara Municipal de Oeiras, here in the presence of the representative of the Mr. Pedro Patacho, Dr. Luís Afonso. Please provide my compliments to the President of the Câmara Municipal, Dr. Isaltino de Moraes. Finally, thank you all for attending the conference and also for attending the pre-conference. I hope you will be critical enough, put some questions, and provide that this moment can be a very discussion meeting and a very profit meeting. Wish you all the best, and I see you around and probably tomorrow and the next after tomorrow during the conference. Thank you very much, and I will pass the words to Mr. Luís Afonso, Dr. Luís Afonso.
Dr. Luís Afonso, representing the town hall of the city of Oeiras, is representing the mayor here. He has got a presentation in Portuguese, but later we will deliver this presentation in English to all the participants, okay?
Muito boa tarde a todos. Excelentíssimo Senhor Presidente da Faculdade de Motricidade Humana da Universidade de Lisboa, Professor Pedro Passos, muito boa tarde. Excelentíssimos Senhores Membros da Direção da Faculdade, distintos investigadores, conferencistas, profissionais de saúde, alunos, minhas senhoras e meus senhores. Em representação do município de Oeiras, saúdo todos os presentes nesta sessão de maior relevância institucional. Este momento espelha a estreita e duradoura parceria estratégica entre o município de Oeiras e a Faculdade de Motricidade Humana. Reafirmamos assim o propósito comum de atuar em prol do desenvolvimento social e do bem-estar da nossa população, direcionando prioridades e respostas eficazes para os desafios do envelhecimento ativo na comunidade. Séniores, idosos, maiores ou grandes, independentemente da designação utilizada, importa reconhecer que não existe uma única forma de envelhecer. Existem tantos percursos de envelhecimento quanto as histórias de vida que lhes dão origem. E esta é uma questão que não pode parecer linear. Na verdade, e não o é de facto. Durante demasiado tempo, as políticas dirigidas às pessoas idosas foram predominantemente construídas numa lógica de resposta à sua dependência. Estas respostas continuam naturalmente a ser indispensáveis hoje. Contudo, coexistem com uma geração crescente de pessoas mais velhas que permanecem autónomas, socialmente participativas e que desejam continuar a exercer plenamente o seu direito de cidadania. É precisamente esta diversidade que desafia os decisores políticos a abandonar as respostas uniformes e a construir políticas mais diferenciadas, preventivas e centradas nas pessoas. Em Oeiras, procuramos concretizar esta visão através de uma política pública integrada que articula a saúde, a ação social, o desporto, a educação e a participação comunitária. Desenvolvemos programas municipais de exercício físico, promovendo iniciativas de combate ao isolamento social, investimos na literacia em saúde e procuramos criar condições para que o envelhecimento seja vivido com autonomia, com segurança e com qualidade de vida. Entendemos o exercício físico não constitui apenas uma atividade de ocupação de tempos livres e de lazer, mas uma das mais poderosas ferramentas da saúde pública e da inclusão de que dispomos enquanto município. É precisamente nesta visão de envelhecimento diverso e multifacetado, sustentado por políticas ativas, que este evento Powerpenia Conference 2026 se torna tão crucial e importante. Quando a ciência nos apresenta este novo conceito de Powerpenia, como perda de potência da velocidade muscular que surge com a idade, ele está a dar-nos uma chave biológica para podermos compreender esta mesma diversidade. A perda de potência motora não afeta todos da mesma forma, mas é ela que dita na prática se um idoso vai conseguir manter-se autónomo para o resto da sua vida ou não. Levantar uma cadeira, subir uma escada, atravessar uma passadeira em segurança ou recuperar o equilíbrio perante um desequilíbrio inesperado. Tudo isto são situações que ocorrerão naturalmente. Por isso, compreender, avaliar e prevenir a powerpenia significa investir na preservação da funcionalidade, da mobilidade ativa, da participação social e, em última análise, da dignidade das pessoas humanas. Para quem define políticas públicas, este biomarcador de saúde é particularmente relevante. Permite-nos, a nós, enquanto decisores políticos, enquanto técnicos, permite-nos desenhar programas de exercício físico mais eficazes, orientar as estratégias preventivas mais precoces e investir em intervenções baseadas em evidência científica, capazes de produzir ganhos reais em saúde e a sustentabilidade social dos territórios. Num contexto de crescente longevidade, não basta acrescentar anos à vida. É fundamental e indispensável acrescentar também vida aos anos. Diria que urge consolidar uma abordagem que deve casar a saúde, o social e o comunitário. E acrescentaria ainda hoje a ciência do desporto e a investigação de vanguarda que se faz diariamente nesta faculdade. Mas este casamento não deve descurar o aspecto central, o respeito pela identidade dos próprios beneficiários-alvo. Pensar nos idosos, sem ouvir e envolver os próprios no desenho das próprias respostas e das próprias políticas, será o primeiro passo para um casamento falhado. Perdoem-me esta analogia, mas não posso deixar de reforçar que a concentração de esforços e investimentos deve ser efetiva em todas as dimensões, assegurando que a pessoa está no centro de todas elas. Ao estarmos aqui hoje a apoiar a partilha do conhecimento científico internacional sobre o desempenho humano e a saúde, continuamos a investir para que as políticas de Oeiras continuem na linha da frente. Informadas pela ciência, mas sempre humanizadas pelas pessoas. Quero, por isso, felicitar calorosamente a Faculdade de Nutricidade Humana pela organização deste evento e desejo a todos uma excelente sessão e muito obrigado.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thank you for your kind words as a share of the organization of this conference. I also thank to the Câmara Municipal de Oeiras for his involvement in this conference, which is a historic event, and I'm going to explain why. So, I'm going to ask if you can put the slides. It's just a change? Okay, here we go. A new word for a new world. In 2023, in February, this word didn't exist. At least I never heard it, and it was not written on internet. And why not just me, but me, a Portuguese guy, a Brazilian, a Chilean, and a French, together at the table, decided to think on this topic. So, for those who don't want to know, and for those who want to know, I born in 1984. And at that time, there was less than 5 billion people in the world. 42 years after, decreased to more than 8.3 billion in the world. And the expectations for the World Health Organization is to reach in 2050 at least 10 billion people. And the percentage of people with more than 65 years old, which we classify as an old individual, will be higher than 20%. So at that time, I will be old in age, in chronological age, but my biological age might not be that age. So it's up to us. So, and I was in Brazil, I went to give a lecture, and we went to this restaurant called Marcelo's. Very nice, good food. We were very excited with the event, and we are just talking about everything that it was funny. People on our side were thinking that we were drunk, but we were not. We were just happy. And with a very good environment, suddenly the word arose. Powerpenia. We should write about this. This is a problem because, in fact, all of me, Seb, René, and Carlos were already doing research, and research about power has started many years ago, more than 30 years ago. And we decided to write the paper, and in that day, we started to write the paper, and we wrote the paper in 5 days. We were very fast to do written this paper, which was published 1 year after. It took some time. There was a back office story that someday I will tell. I cannot tell by conflict of interest and ethics issues. And we organized in 2024 the first seminar in Brazil, in Porto Alegre, which was hosted by the Faculty of Medicine of Universidade Federal Rio Grande do Sul. It's one of the biggest medical schools. And they hosted because they also considered that it was very important. And people like Ken Osaka, they participated. I think it was extraordinary. 500 people registered. 22 countries registered. The Center of Intelligence from Canada registered to the event. So they were aware that probably this is a powerful concept. So after this photo, when we came back, we were very happy. We came back from the lunch. I went to the hotel and I said, did someone already imagine this word? Because sometimes we have an idea that someone on the other side of the world is thinking the same. So I went very carefully and I said, oh, now if I write, Google will know. Okay, let's go to an anonymous page. And then I wrote, and it showed up this, Powerpenias. And I said, wow, no, it is not on the internet. But Powerpenia is also an interesting concept. But it was not. So, what is Powerpenia? 40 years ago, more or less some years after I was born, a medical doctor proposed the concept of sarcopenia, given the observation that with time, we lose skeletal muscle mass. But we lose with higher rate maximal strength. And 20 years later, like 20 years ago, two researchers proposed the concept of dynapenia. Say, look, sarcopenia is important, but dynapenia, which relies on maximal strength, is even more important because the rate that we lose is higher, and it relates to different adverse health outcomes with higher strength. But, in fact, a bunch of literature shows that motor power, the mechanical power that we develop from our motor system, which includes muscles, tendons, and other structures and bones, so it's not just muscle power, it's all the motor system that develops the power, allow it to create the concept of powerpenia, which is a neologism. And so not. So the decline of power is greater with age because dead people don't walk, so they don't produce power, okay? So but they still, when they die, they still have mass in the body. So we die with mass in the body. And with rigor mortis, we can still produce force. So there's a strength capability, but no power. So power means the battery that we have in our body. That's the way I think. The onset of decline also starts earlier for power. For instance, if we look to the top athletes in the world, Usain Bolt, he got his record when he was 22 years old. The most strongest guy, except Zebulon Turbo, which we will meet tomorrow, he got lifted almost 500 kilograms in 2 exercises. He was 28. And Mr. Olympia, he got his record last year, he was 32. So Usain Bolt, he got his peak when he was 22. He didn't come back again. He continued as a superstar in explosive task, but he peaked at 22. And decline accelerates at later times, and we can observe that, and with mass we cannot observe, but first with power. And there is some tasks, like jump, that they just stop doing. There are some people living that walk that do not jump anymore. And those have high risk of falls, for instance, and to gain adverse outcomes. So, Powerpenia, more sensitive to age, more affected by disease. If I get a cold, I will still get my muscle mass. I may lose some strength, but I lose for sure 20% of my power. I cannot produce so much power like in Kaiser machines, which is the sponsor of this event, and we thank for that. Is more affected by physical inactivity, and better relates to motor function, okay, and has a more strong relation with quality of life. So that's what data says. And it's not just for adults. Very recently, more or less 1 month ago, it was proposed the concept of pediatric powerpenia, because it has been proposed now to young people that may reflect as a marker of their inability to perform motor tasks, which are related also to health. So Powerpenia is not just for olds, it's for the full cycle. For the full cycle. The word Powerpenia, it's a neologism. And there is other proposals in literature that came up after we proposed this, like Kraptopenia. Even the word Dynapenia has the prefix from the Greek has meaning related to power, but in practice they do more strength, so that with the time it is related to strength and not to power. But power everyone in the world knows. Penia comes from the Greek. So there's a lot of words that are neologisms. When I say workaholic, neuroscience, I have a prefix that comes from Anglo-Saxonic, and I have a suffix that comes from the Greek. So, and now it's being spread out. So we mixed the language. What is the problem with the, I didn't want to go here. What is the problem with the Powerpenia? People think that is a positive concept. I have Powerpenia. No, you should not have Powerpenia. Powerpenia is not good. So that's the only problem. The other problem that is maybe related to this is that think that is Powerpenia, it's a concept to stimulate power training. And I have my doubts that power training is the full key. Maybe sleep is more important sometimes than train. So I think Powerpenia is just a marker to say how much battery or how much fuel you have in the tank of your body, okay, to do some exercise. When is not enough, may increase the probability of adverse health outcomes. So the Powerpenia fits in a field that concerns longevity and aging. And what are the economic numbers of this? This paper published in Nature, they say like this: we show that slow down aging that increases life expectancy by 1 year, it's worth 38 trillion. Trillion is after billion, okay? Just million, billion, trillion. And in 10 years, it will increase 10 times. So this is a huge market that is now attracting people because people are getting old and they want to keep young as the time passes. So Powerpenia is now being spread worldwide. In our website, more than 25,000 visits came from all these countries, which were more than 90 countries. And we had the citations of the papers are also increasing. And right now, our concern is to establish a big network to promote the development of this concept. And that's why we created this event, because this will be a historic event where we'll be discussing with world opinion leaders about how to assess in different contexts, okay, and how to approach at a large scale, at a small scale, at a meaningful scale, okay. So what we'll have in this event, which is starting today is a pre-conference, but tomorrow we'll start the official event of the conference. In the morning we'll have workshops. In that afternoon we'll have the first panel developed, oriented to technology and methodological aspects of power assessments. Then we will have the presentations from 60 works, most of them presented locally from people from 25 countries, so, which are being presented, and we'll select the best 3 works for the next day. The next day we'll have a panel dedicated to assessment in different populations, like children, okay? And in the afternoon, a panel with the geriatric, for the geriatric population. And then we're gonna end with a nice dinner sponsored by Câmara Municipal de Oeiras, which I thank again, and probably with some party, because Portugal will play from Thursday to Friday, and then we'll celebrate Friday night, okay? And also, we'll have the most strongest and powerful man on earth. I'm saying this, I'm taking that is Zé Black Turbo. He's an athlete of calisthenics. We tested already in the lab. What he does is amazing, but what is more amazing is that he has 55 years old. And he does things that no one in the world can do it. So we're going to have demonstration from him as well. So for those who didn't subscribe and are here, you still can have the chance for that. Isabel Moraes is waiting for your confirmation outside, okay? Thank you, and hope that this new word is also for your world, okay? Well, now I'm going to serve as moderator, and I'm going to call our first guest, Professor Ken Nazaka, which I like him a lot. So, and because I like him a lot, yesterday I asked Dorina, which is doing the PhD here with me, to walk with him. And Dorina just did 22,000 steps because she's caring about physical activity of Professor Ken Nazaka. So, Professor Ken Nazaka, welcome to Portugal. Welcome to our faculty. And thank you very much for your time and your energy here, okay?
Thank you very much. Actually, the slide color is different.
The color.
Color, yeah, it should be black. Yeah.
They are solving.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction. So I think I have a little bit better color for the slide, so I think they are changing it. Used to be better, like not this color. So I checked it before the presentation. It worked perfectly. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. So I prepared 83 slides, a little bit long, but hopefully I can finish in 70 minutes. Then, this is the one. Yeah, then followed by questions. So my talk, the title is Let's Get Eccentric. Okay, so I'm Ken Nosaka from Australia, but originally from Japan. Yeah. So I'm very shocked to see the game against Brazil. So World Cup, we lost, but a good game. Yeah. Okay, so Anyway, special thanks to Sandro. Thank you very much for organizing this pre-conference and also the Powerpenia conference. This is exciting days ahead. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so I'm from Australia. So especially I'm from Perth, west coast of the Australia. And then Portugal. I went to Jyväskylä in Finland before this conference. So I have been in Europe for more than a week now. So yeah, so this is the location. But if you have not been to Australia, especially Perth, Perth is a very nice city. And also there are a lot of interesting animals and interesting plants. So I want you to visit our university. So this is our new campus here, city campus. But Edith Karma is a lady who represented the education sector. She's the first parliamentarian. So she's the first person to represent the in the politics. Okay. So then we borrowed her name. Okay. So what is the common adjective of these three pictures? Any answer? Yes, good. So I'm looking for eccentric or eccentric, okay? So eccentric means uncommon or abnormal or weird, right? And also, this person's costume, left-hand side, is very weird, and then maybe he may be a little bit strange. And Einstein was considered to be the extraordinary scientist. Then people here is doing typical eccentric exercise. So they are going downstairs. They are performing lengthening muscle contractions. So I'm using eccentric contraction or eccentric exercise in this lecture, but there are some criticism about using eccentric. For example, this is Peter Kavanagh. He's a biomechanist, very famous, long time ago. He said eccentric contraction is lengthening, shortening. So oxymoron. Maybe we should not say eccentric contraction. Contraction is shortening. Eccentric lengthening. Maybe we have to say eccentric muscle action is the right way to say eccentric. But 2003, John Faulkner, he's an exercise physiologist and some more muscle physiologist. He said contraction does not necessarily mean that shortening. Contraction is to undergo activation and generate force. So it is okay to say contraction, but we should not say eccentric contraction or concentric contraction. We should say shortening contraction or lengthening contraction. So better way to say eccentric contraction is lengthening contraction. However, many people are still using eccentric contraction. Also, I like eccentric, that word. So I'm using eccentric in this lecture. So we have to define what eccentric contraction is. So actually, there are more pointers here. That's okay. So when you are standing up, so your muscle is shortened in the middle. Then you do concentric contraction. Then you are just holding the body in the middle. This is isometric, not so much changing the muscle length. But when you are sitting to a chair slowly, your front thigh muscle lengthen. You are activated muscle lengthen, which is eccentric contraction. So eccentric contraction is not a strange contraction at all. We are performing every day. And then in this particular lecture, I define eccentric exercise that mainly consists of eccentric contraction, where force produced by muscle is smaller than load. Okay? So even this is very not heavy, but I'm reducing my force output from my elbow flexors, then this is going down. This is eccentric. So force production is smaller than load. Okay? So there are many different types of eccentric exercises. For example, sit-up. Sit-up is concentric, but going back to the floor is eccentric. Also, push-up is concentric, kind of going to the floor slowly is eccentric. And lowering a dumbbell, chin-up, they are eccentric phase. Or lunge exercise, or going downhill is eccentric exercise. So this is eccentric cycling. not only, going pedal backwards, there are motor inside, motor rotate the pedal backwards. So these people are trying to go forward, but motor is very strong, their leg is going backwards. But if these people try to stop the pedal, they can. So they need to control the force production a little bit lower than pedaling force. Okay? So where force is smaller than load, then you can do eccentric cycling. So there are many different types of eccentric exercises. So eccentric contraction can produce more force than concentric. Normally, we can produce more than 20% greater force in eccentric contraction than concentric. So maximal eccentric contraction is using isokinetic dynamometer. So you are producing maximal force, but machine is stretching your muscle. Okay? Or maybe bench press exercise. I cannot lift 70 kilogram. Maybe my maximum is maybe 65 or something like that. But if someone is helping me to put weight here, I can lower 90 kilograms of the barbell slowly. So I can produce more force for eccentric bench press than concentric bench press. And also we have a accentuated eccentric contraction where eccentric phase load is greater than concentric phase load. For example, we can use weight releaser, the left-hand side. We have extra weight for the eccentric phase. Then at the end of the eccentric phase, they came off. It's coming off. Then you can do lighter concentric. Or flywheel machine, depending on the actually methods, but you can have an accentuated eccentric loading. And also we have 2 legs or 2 arms for the concentric phase, then only 1 arm or 1 leg for the eccentric phase. This is called 2-1 methods. And also we have a prolonged eccentric contraction using the same weight or same load for eccentric and concentric contraction, but we can just prolong the eccentric contraction. So let's say 1 second for concentric, 2 or 3 seconds for eccentric. Or even 2 seconds for concentric, and then 5 seconds for eccentric. Okay? And also we have a low intensity eccentric exercises, such as the eccentric cycling. Intensity is only 20 to 30% your maximal strength. And also we have a body weight eccentric exercise, just sitting the chair slowly is eccentric. And also we have an eccentric biased exercise, going downhill or going downstairs. Okay? Then we can do some eccentric contraction, the more focused eccentric contraction, still doing some concentric as well, but eccentric is more focused. So in these exercises, always force is smaller than load. Then active muscle is stretched or lengthened. That is eccentric contraction. So, but, eccentric muscle action, eccentric contraction is a little bit kind of confusing to many people because most of our resistance exercises are based on concentric phase for their name. For example, bench press, or calf raise, or heel raise, or arm curl, or row. They are always concentric contraction. So how we can call eccentric bench press? So not bench press anymore, just lowering the barbell here to here. How we can call it? It is eccentric bench press, but not press anymore. So we need to kind of discuss more about the best name for eccentric exercises, or eccentric, especially only resistance exercises. So this is important. And then let's start talking about more muscle mechanics. This is muscle contraction. As you know, actin and myosin is kind of bonding together to contract the muscle. So this is, top one is resting muscle. Then sarcomere is shortened, is concentric. Probably sarcomere lengthen is eccentric. However, is this eccentric? Some of the sarcomere is shortened. Some of the sarcomere does not change the length, but some sarcomere are stretched. Okay? So that is happening in the muscle. I don't think all of these muscle sarcomere extend similarly during eccentric contraction. Some of the sarcomere is still same length. Some of them are even shortened. Some of them are lengthened. So this is the muscle, like a sarcomere level of eccentric contraction. And then eccentric contraction, maybe due to tightening the elastic component of muscle, play a very good role to increase force production. So tightening has a very interesting molecule to have a play in these roles. But also that have a very important component for eccentric contraction to produce greater force than concentric contraction or isometric contraction. So this is cross-bridge cycle. We know this one very well. Myosin head attached to the actin. Okay. Then that they have a stroke. But in the stroke, myosin head is released, ATP is used. Okay. So we don't know so much about how cross-bridge behave during eccentric contraction. Probably in the eccentric contraction, not much attach, detach occurs. Maybe they are attaching to the active site, then going this way, okay? So in fact, during eccentric contraction, we don't use ATP so much. So actually, one of the articles show that ATP usage in eccentric contraction only 1/10 of concentric contraction. So we are not using so much ATP because we don't need to detach the myosin head from active site. Okay? So we don't know exactly this kind of mechanism for eccentric contractions yet. So this is me. So I cannot lift 20 kilometer dumbbell, okay? But I can do it 15. But if I use both arms to bring the dumbbell here, I can lower it slowly, like 3 seconds or 5 seconds. So normally, eccentric contraction can produce greater force than concentric, as you can see force-velocity relationship on the left-hand side. So this is a very interesting picture. So this is leg press machine. There are 34 plates. Each one is 20 kilograms. So you can see that 680 kilometer weight over there. Then 2 people are sitting on the top of the machine. So they are 80 kilograms, even 90 kilograms. So they are holding the the plates. Okay? So total amount of this weight is about 1,000 kilograms, 1 ton. So this is a rugby player lying on the right-hand side. The maximal strength he can produce for the concentric phase is about 600 kilograms, which is large, very large, but not as large as eccentric contraction. If people are helping him to extend his knee joint, the person can lower 1,000 kilogram weight slowly in 5 seconds. Okay? So, and then depending on the exercise and depending on the equipment, a little bit different, but actually we can produce about 40% greater force during eccentric contraction in comparison to concentric. So we have a greater capacity to produce more force eccentrically. So this means that if you are using the same weight for the eccentric and the concentric contraction, you feel much easier to do eccentric exercise. And also that during eccentric exercise, you don't fatigue so much. So this slide showed how many repetitions you can do for the same weight or same relative weight. Relative weight means depending on the 1 RM eccentric or 1 RM concentric. As you can see, eccentric contraction for the arm curl, bench press, back squat, always can do more repetitions. So this shows that more repetition can be performed in eccentric only exercise with the same load as well as the same relative load. Okay? So eccentric exercise is less fatigable. We don't have so much fatigue during eccentric exercise. So, and also the eccentric strength is relatively better maintained in comparison to the isometric or concentric strength. So with aging, 22 years to 90 years old, eccentric strength decreased only 25%, but concentric and isometric strengths decrease more. So this is also advantage for Powerpenia, so that older people can perform eccentric exercise a little bit easier, then they can have advantage to have a little bit sustained or maintained eccentric strength. The force related by eccentric contraction decline less with aging, and this is associated with the greater passive resistance from the elastic tissue structure, which is tightening. Okay? This is a very interesting study published in 1952, long time ago. They are very clever. They combined two bicycles. One person is cycling normally. The other person is going backwards. So they have a pair. One person is doing eccentric cycling. Other person is doing concentric cycling. Then they measure the oxygen consumption. Oxygen consumption during eccentric exercise is much, much less than concentric cycling. So we have less oxygen necessary to perform same work. So this was very interesting. So we tried to do the study using the special bicycle, which can do eccentric and concentric cycling. Then we targeted the same work, about 160 watts. Then as you can see, left-hand side graph, we need 50% less oxygen to perform the same work for eccentric cycling than concentric cycling. Also, heart rate was also lower during eccentric than concentric cycling. Especially second time they do same eccentric cycling 2 weeks later, 30% lower heart rate. So this indicates that eccentric exercise is less metabolically demanding than concentric exercise. For example, when you are going upstairs, you may be panting, but you are going down easy. So when you are doing eccentric exercise, less metabolically demanding than concentric exercise. Also, during eccentric exercise, we may be using more brain. So when you are going downstairs, you have to be more vigilant, then pay more attention. So you may be using more brain. So this is the eccentric versus concentric cycling. They did the same work. Okay? Heart rate is much lower for the eccentric cycling, but we have a special target to reach. But eccentric cycling have more error for that target, especially the reaction time. We measured reaction time during the cycling. So we asked the participant to respond to the certain number shown on the computer screen. The computer screen is blinking like a 0 to 9. Okay, then maybe before the exercise, we can ask participant, when you see 5, you need to respond. Then computer showed 9, 2, 4, 5, then plus. So reaction time during eccentric exercise is much delayed, 0.7 seconds in comparison to concentric or no exercise condition. Also, more error occurs, about 20% more error occurs in eccentric cycling. So this indicates that eccentric cycling, cognitive demand is greater than concentric cycling. But this could be also the case for stair walking or any eccentric exercise. We need to use more brain to control muscle contraction in eccentric exercise. But one negative aspect of eccentric exercise is muscle damage. You get sore after exercise. Not always, but if you are doing pure concentric exercise, you don't get sore. Okay? So, and the left-hand side slide show that strength decrease after eccentric cycling greater than concentric cycling. But if you repeat the same eccentric cycling 2 weeks later, much less strength loss and faster recovery. Muscle soreness does not occur after concentric cycling. Then after the second bout of eccentric cycling, less soreness. So this indicates that prolonged loss of muscle strength and delayed onset muscle soreness is not occurring immediately after exercise, but maybe 12 hours or 24 hours after exercise. It is called DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness, are peculiar to custom eccentric exercise. These are considered to be the symptoms of muscle damage, but these symptoms are attenuated or reduced when the same exercise is performed. So, as I said, typical indication of muscle damage is delayed muscle soreness and prolonged loss of muscle function, or could be muscle power as well. Also, sometimes we can see muscle become stiff. In this case, the subject could not extend his elbow joint because of the elbow flexors become very stiff. Also, we can see swelling of the muscle. So left-hand side performed eccentric exercise 4 days before. Then you can see enlargement of the upper arm and the forearm. So these ones might be associated with inflammation. So typical signs of inflammation is pain, redness, immobility, and swelling and heat. I think the black part is heat. Okay? After eccentric exercise, you can see pain, immobility, loss of muscle function, and swelling. So these indications or indicators are not due to damaged cell, but inflammation is causing those. And also we can assess creatine kinase or myoglobin in the blood to see the damage to the muscle fibers. And also we can use ultrasound or MRI to see change in the echo intensity or T2 relaxation time to visualize muscle damage. But typical indication of muscle damage is histological changes. We need to take biopsy, muscle sample, then observe under the microscope, electrical microscope or maybe light microscope. So as you can see here, so when I started my muscle damage studies, I was very excited to see these pictures, okay? So there are a lot of pictures like this. There are focal damage of the muscle filaments after eccentric exercise, especially Z-line streaming is occurring only after, or maybe more after, eccentric contraction. But look at this one. This is only 1 micrometer, very small lesion. But next to that one is not damaged at all. Okay, so only focal damage, very minor damage occurring after eccentric exercise. So in this particular study from Norway, they compared between, they controlled leg, which did not do eccentric contraction. They also the eccentric exercise leg, which performed 300 maximal eccentric contraction of knee extensors. As you can see from the left-hand side, so the myofilament damage occurred for the eccentric leg. About 40% of the fiber somewhere is damaged. But from same study, when they're looking at the muscle fiber level, only less than 1% of the muscle fibers are damaged. So when we say muscle damage, we tend to think that a lot of muscle fibers are destroyed, but that is not the case. Muscle fiber damage occurs at ultrastructural level, myosin and actin level, especially for the Z-line, but not that much for the muscle fibers. Okay? So this is also the interesting study. They compared between the maximal voluntary eccentric contraction versus maximal voluntary eccentric contraction plus electrical stimulation. So only electrical stimulation condition induced muscle fiber damage. Okay? But when they compared between the two, this is very interesting. So no difference between muscle soreness level between left-hand side and right-hand side. Right-hand side pictures showed more damage to the muscle fibers, but that does not necessarily mean that they are painful. And also strength loss is much greater for the no damage condition than damaged condition. So this indicates that histological changes do not necessarily represent symptom muscle damage, such as soreness or strength loss. Okay. So then what is the best marker of muscle damage? So in this particular study, we just collected all of the data from our previous studies. Then all the participants performed 30 maximal eccentric exercise, contraction of the elbow flexors. Then we divide them into the 3 groups. A person who showed very minor decrease in strength at 1 day after exercise, about 20% decrease only. Then next one is 40% decrease, the medium decrease in strength. And the last group is 60% decrease in strength. So we assume that the more damage occurred to the person who showed larger decrease in strength. But when looking at all of the participants, we have a lot of overlaps. CK does not distinguish between the three groups clearly, or even muscle soreness does not distinguish three groups clearly. So if it comes to the muscle damage, muscle function measures, especially the maximal voluntary contraction strength, or maybe power measurements, is the best indicator of muscle damage. Okay? And then, but cannot distinguish damage from fatigue, because after fatigue, we can still see some decrease in strength or power. So it is really difficult to distinguish between fatigue and damage, but at least 1 day or 2 days after exercise, we can still see decrease in muscle function. It should indicate damage, or muscle soreness indicate muscle damage. But does not necessarily mean that they represent the magnitude of muscle damage. Okay, so this is the shear stress. Okay, so when this is the muscle, so shear stress means shear is a component of stress acting parallel or coplanar to materials cross-section, causing internal layers to slide past one another. So muscle have a kind of inside the muscle, okay? Muscle fascia, muscle fibers is a shear stress, okay? So muscle fiber has capillaries and also the connective tissue and nerves. They should be affected by shear. So this is this hypothetical. Okay, so muscle fibers are recruited by motor units, but in eccentric contraction, not all of muscle fibers are recruited at the same time. Some of the muscles are recruited, but some muscles are resting. Or for low intense eccentric contraction, many muscles are just resting. So these are in the middle, red muscle fiber is contracting, but other muscle relaxing. But when we do eccentric contraction, we can create stress, a shear stress between contracting muscle fibers and other muscle fibers. Then that can create shear stress between fibers. Then that could affect extracellular matrix or connective tissue. Then shear stress between fascicles could occur. Maybe this is a muscle fiber level, but maybe bundle of muscle, also shear stress. And also between muscles could be a shear stress as well. Maybe vastus lateralis versus rectus femoris, or maybe vastus lateralis versus vastus intermedius. Shear stress could occur between muscles. Then that could damage capillaries and nerves. Okay, this is the hypothetical. So yesterday, Dorina took me to the nice places. So this is for you. Okay, so this is nice study by Dorina. So she presented very nicely possible damage to the nerves after eccentric contraction. She wrote it that the current evidence is suggestive that eccentric contraction has the potential to alter peripheral nerve structure and also function as well. This is good. Actually, this is Japanese group. They use very small muscle, there's a finger muscle, to do eccentric contraction 100 times. Then they show that after eccentric contraction, they are decreasing muscle strength, then decreasing nerve conduction velocity. So this indicates that some damage occurred to the nerve. Okay? And also this is animal study. So plantar flexors are damaged by eccentric contraction, 60 maximal eccentric contraction. Then this is interesting. They measured muscle strength in 2 ways. One is via nerve, okay? And one is just surrounding the muscle by electrodes, then stimulate the muscle directly. So here, you can see direct is muscle stimulation. Indirect means stimulated through nerve. Then, as you can see, the difference between the two could indicate nerve damage. So they found some nerve damage after eccentric contraction of this animal muscle. Then, when they are looking at the neuromuscular junction, some damage occurs at ultrastructural level. So it looks like damage occurred to the nerve, but we don't know how much yet. Okay? So then it is important. So when we stimulate muscles, then shear stress occurs. That can stimulate a lot of extracellular matrix proteins. So, for example, integrin connect outside to the inside of the muscle fibers. Okay? So actually, this is the signaling pathway. Signal is coming from outside the muscle membrane, then going inside to increase protein synthesis. So if we have some shear stress, then that could stimulate the signaling pathway. So shear stress could be very important for muscle adaptations and also muscle damage or nerve damage as well. So just putting them together, so we used to think that the increase in calcium concentration in the muscle cell is causing many symptoms of muscle damage, but now we think more about damage to the extracellular matrix, connective tissue, okay, surrounding muscle fibers or muscle fascia is causing these symptoms. And also, it is possible, maybe these damage to the extracellular matrix can cause damage to the nerves and also damage to the capillaries, okay? So then, if you don't want to have any damage after eccentric exercise, you should do low intensity, small number of contractions, slow contraction, and also short muscle length. For example, if you are doing eccentric contraction, the long muscle length, for example, lowering dumbbell to the end, muscle is more longer, this causes more damage. You just stop in the middle, not so much damage occurs. Okay? Then you have more damage for the opposite direction. Also muscles, leg muscles are always performing eccentric contraction in a way, so less damage to the leg muscles in comparison to the arm muscles. Also children does not have so much damage. And I did a study using my daughter. When she was 3, I started testing her on her birthday, okay? So on her birthday, she has to lie down on the bed. Then, so I just need to pull her leg, okay? So she's contracting her knee flexors, okay? Then I did 100 times eccentric contractions, okay? Then after that exercise, she can eat a cake, okay? Good motivation, right? So yeah, so when I started exercise without any permission from her, of course my wife said, "You are crazy, you should not do this one." But I continued the experiment every year until she became 10. Okay? So at 3, 4, 5, 6, she didn't have any symptom of muscle soreness next days. When she becomes 7, Daddy, a little bit funny here next day, okay? But no pain. But when she became 8, she has pain. Okay? Next day, Daddy, my legs are painful. What happened? I said, good, okay? Then 9, 10, she had more soreness. So then we did a study for a larger scale. Then we confirmed that boys and girls less than 10 years old, not so much muscle soreness, but when they become 15 or 16, more damage, and 20, more damage. But when we get older, like 60 years old, we have less damage because we lose fast twitch muscle fibers, which is more susceptible to eccentric contraction-induced muscle damage. Okay? Yeah, so, and also some gender difference exists, especially for animal studies, but not so much for human studies. There are many studies investigating the menstrual cycle effect on the muscle damage in female, but not so much effect. Okay? But definitely, body conditioning exercise can reduce muscle damage. Training can reduce muscle damage, especially eccentric training. And also fatigue can increase muscle damage. And also the one typical phenomena is called repeated bout effect. If we are doing the same eccentric exercise, maybe 4 weeks later in this case, you have much faster recovery of strength, much less soreness, actually no increase in CK and myoglobin. So this is called repeated bout effect. So repeated bout effect magnitude is about almost 100% for CK. So CK did not increase after the second bout. But muscle soreness is also protected about 90%. You have very small amount of muscle damage, but not as large as the first one. Strength loss still occurs, but recovery is 40% faster. But important thing is here. If you do very low intensity eccentric exercise first, then doing maximal eccentric exercise second, 2 or 3 or 4 weeks later, less damage. So for example, 20% eccentric contraction does not induce any soreness, any damage. But if you are doing 20% eccentric exercise fast, then 2 weeks later, you do maximal eccentric contraction. So the strength loss is still occurs, but 20% faster recovery. Then soreness is 50% less. And also CK increase is also 60% less. Okay? Also, we can protect muscle damage by doing isometric contraction at long muscle lengths, not short muscle, but long muscle lengths. So it means that eccentric exercise-induced muscle damage can be protected or prevented. So many people think eccentric exercise is dangerous, okay, because that causes muscle damage. That is not the case. Eccentric exercise is not equal to muscle damage. Okay. And also we have a very interesting phenomena called contralateral repeated body effect. So today, if you do eccentric exercise of the right arm, then like 2 weeks later, you do the eccentric exercise of the left arm. Left arm muscle damage is much, much less than the right arm. So in this particular study, we did a right arm versus left arm. Then time between the two exercises either 30 minutes to 8 weeks. So a lot of participants are necessary for this experiment. Also, the control group did the same arm eccentric exercise twice in 2 weeks. So then we can see strength loss is exactly the same after the first bout. But when second bout is performed by the same arm, strength recovery is much faster, showing by the control, CON. But second exercise bout was performed the opposite arm, 1 day, 1 week, 4 weeks later, much faster recovery of strength. Okay? But on the same day, or 8 weeks later, no change, no difference from their first bout. That is also the case for muscle soreness. Okay? So this indicates that initial bout of eccentric exercise can protect the muscle damage from the opposite arm in this case. But we also did the opposite leg to leg. Okay? So then, so this is actually leg to leg and arm to arm. Basically, we can see about 50% protective effect from leg to leg or arm to arm. So if you do the eccentric exercise today using one leg or one arm, so 2 or 3 weeks later, you do the same exercise using opposite leg or opposite arm, you have less damage. This is very interesting phenomenon. But that does not occur for the arm to leg or leg to arm or elbow flexors to elbow extensors. So should be homogeneous muscle. Okay? So yeah, muscle damage protective effect to the of the elbow flexors is not induced by eccentric except the knee extensors or knee flexors. Okay, arm to arm, leg to leg. So what is the cause of the repeated body effect? We don't know the exact mechanism yet, but could it be combination of neural adaptations, inflammation adaptation, extracellular matrix remodeling, and also muscle tendon complex adaptation. But we don't know the whole picture yet. But especially coming to the arm to arm or contralateral repeated body effect, more neural adaptation should be responsible for that. So yeah, this is the possible site of the cross-education effect. So we know more about cross-education effect. You train one limb, then you can see strength gain for the opposite arm without any training. About 50% training effect transfer from one limb to the other. So this is also the case for muscle damage, but actually the eccentric exercises have a better protective mechanism. So maybe at the brain or maybe spinal cord level, maybe somehow eccentric exercise can provide better cross-education for a contralateral effect. So we don't know the whole mechanism for this one yet. Also, muscle adaptation occurs to the neural and also muscular level. So as you know, a lot of neural adaptation and also muscular adaptation. But eccentric contraction can increase tendon stiffness, okay? And also eccentric contraction can affect the brain better. So that's why eccentric exercise, and also eccentric exercise can increase protein synthesis better. But overall, eccentric exercise is very effective to increase muscle strength and also muscle mass. Yeah. And also cross-education effect is greater after eccentric exercise. So when I was a sprinter, long time ago, I sprint, okay? But I cannot sprint anymore. I'm getting old. So I believed no pain, no gain. So when I was a university student, I thought best training is to damage my muscles. Okay? Then if I damage my muscle gets stronger, then eventually I can run faster. That was wrong, totally wrong. I didn't get fast at all. Anyway, so some people believe no pain, no gain. Of course, we need effort to increase our fitness, but not necessarily pain. So in this particular study, review article, they said muscle damage is getting less and less over training, but hypertrophy occurring toward the end of the training sessions, several weeks later. Okay. So conclusion, muscle damage necessary for hypertrophy? Answer is no. Whether muscle damage is necessary for the strength gain? Answer is also no. So we don't need muscle damage to get stronger, okay, or get bigger. So if you have muscle damage, then that can increase protein degradation. That is negative effect. So even concentric contraction can have some increase in muscle protein synthesis, but the best training would be maximize eccentric exercise by minimizing muscle damage. So it is not necessary to damage the muscle, but we should be using eccentric contractions without any damage. That could be the best exercise protocol. So in order to do that, maybe someone who is not getting used to the resistance training, we should be starting with isometric contraction at long muscle length. Then we can gradually increase the range of motion, repetition number, intensity, and velocity to getting more larger range of motion, including long muscle length, eccentric contraction. Eccentric contraction number is also getting larger. Then when we increase the intensity, it may be better to reduce the volume to adjust, not sudden increase in the total volume. Then eventually we can have a faster velocity eccentric contraction. Faster velocity eccentric contraction is more difficult because it is easier to just use the gravity, but you need to resist. Okay? So it is not easy, but sometimes more dangerous, but that is the last part. Okay? So this is a study. Okay, so this is heel raise or calf raise exercise. You can see one leg performed eccentric, both legs performed concentric. Eccentric is 3 seconds, concentric is 1 second for both legs. Then we can gradually increase the repetition number. Then what we found from here is that the leg which included eccentric contraction showed increasing strength, increasing range of motion, increasing muscle cross-section area. But you are doing only concentric contraction, no such adaptations. So significant increase in muscle strength, range of motion, flexibility, and muscle thickness are induced by a concentric, eccentric exercise, not concentric only. Okay? So we need to do eccentric contraction. So in this particular study, we are recruiting the participants. This is during COVID-19, really difficult study. So they came to the lab to perform 3 seconds contraction, only 3 seconds. Okay? But one group did isometric contraction at 90 degrees of the elbow joint. Other group did concentric contraction from extended elbow joint to the flexed elbow joint in 3 seconds. This is the eccentric training group. Elbow flexors extended from 90 degrees to the 0 degrees in about 3 seconds. Okay? So they came to the lab 5 days a week, Monday to Friday. So they didn't come to the lab Saturday and Sunday. So 5 days a week they trained. And then they came to the lab 4 weeks. So they had 20 sessions in total. either eccentric, concentric, isometric. As you can see, this is the eccentric contraction. So elbow flexors and elbow joint passively flex. Then he is asked to resist maximally. But unfortunately, machine is stronger than him. So his elbow joint is extended in 3 seconds. Okay? Then he can go home. Okay? So for this particular participant, he took 35 minutes to come to the lab, but he did only 3-second exercise, including setup only 5 minutes. Okay? So over 4 weeks, participant performed 3 times 5 times 4, 60 seconds exercise. Okay? Either concentric, eccentric, or isometric. Then we found that always eccentric training group produced greater torque of the elbow flexors because we have a greater capacity to produce force eccentrically than concentric or isometrically. Then, after 4 weeks, we found that only eccentric training group showed increase in strength. Not only eccentric strength, isometric strength and concentric strength as well. So all of the participants, so 13%, showed increase either 4.4% to 90.5%, average is 11.5%. But concentric and isometric training group, some subjects showed improvement, but average, no significant changes. So this indicates that eccentric exercise or contraction is more effective for increasing muscle strength than isometric or concentric. I'm not saying 3 seconds is enough. I don't say that, but eccentric is more effective than concentric and isometric. And also we had a review article, which is better to increase muscle strength. So we wanted to know whether increased muscle strength, eccentric is better, or concentric is better, or both similar, or in order to increase isometric strength, which is better. Then we found that in order to increase eccentric strength, definitely eccentric training is better. But in order to increase concentric strength, both eccentric and concentric have similar effect. In order to increase isometric strength, also similar effect. So because of the advantage for the increase in eccentric strength by eccentric training, we should be doing more eccentric training. So it is possible. In the gym, we just need to do eccentric contractions. So if I say that, maybe strength coaches say, you are crazy, you are eccentric. But we need to prove more. But actually, we think that in the lab, in the gym, we need to focus more for eccentric only contractions. That could be more effective to increase strength and power as well. So eccentric only strength training is superior for improving maximal eccentric strength, maximal concentric, increase in the concentric strength and isometric strength, similarly to the concentric only training. So because of the advantage of the eccentric strength gain by eccentric training, we should be more focusing on eccentric contractions. So this is a really interesting study. So we immobilized one of the arms for 3 weeks. Then non-immobilized arm performed eccentric or concentric contraction. Okay? So this is the immobilization for 3 weeks. So they did only 6 exercise sessions in total. Then, as you can see here, immobilized arm showed decrease in, first of all, eccentric training induced greater increase in isometric concentric strength and also cross-section area of the biceps in comparison to concentric training. Concentric training also increased, but magnitude about 50% of the eccentric training improvement. Then, immobilized arm showed 15% to 90% decrease in strength by immobilization, also 12% decrease in cross-section area. But when their arms are immobilized, they are doing concentric training, the strength loss is much lower, and also the cross-section area decrease is much lower. So that is due to the cross-education effect. But when they are doing eccentric training, we could see increase, very small, but still increase in strength for the immobilized arm. No atrophy at all for the immobilized arm. So this is good. So eccentric training with non-immobilized arm eliminated strength loss and muscle atrophy by immobilization. So maybe someone is unlucky to have an injury. We can encourage them to do eccentric training for the non-injured leg or arm. Okay? And also we are doing a lot of eccentric training. So this is a simple eccentric training. Sitting to the chair slowly or leaning back to the chair slowly, or calf raise, but only one leg is going down. Also wall push-up. You are trying to kiss to the wall slowly. So these exercises, even you are repeating 10 times, it takes about 1 minute per exercise. So doing all of these exercises takes only 5 minutes a day. But this 5 minutes a day exercise can still increase strength, especially sit-ups and also push-ups increase a lot, and also somewhat affecting the cardiovascular function. Heart rate during the step exercise lower. Okay? But most importantly, we didn't find so much changes for the other parameters, but mental health parameters improved. And then 20 out of 22 participants continued some exercises. So we recruited the people from university officers. They hated exercise. If I asked them to do exercise, no exercise. They didn't like exercise at all, but we asked them to do only 5 minutes exercise a day, if possible every day for 4 weeks. Then many people did like 80% of that. So then we see some improvement of the muscle function, okay, and also mental health. Then 20 out of 22 participants try to walk more or try to keep the same eccentric exercises, or some people started to go to the gym. This is very good behavioral changes, which is very important. So if we ask them to do 30 minutes exercise, they say no. But what about 5 minutes exercise? They may say, okay, I will try. So this is going to be a good motivation to start, motivating people to start exercise. And also in this particular exercise, we compare between the knee extensor concentric exercise, right-hand side, eccentric exercise. In order to avoid muscle damage, we started from low intensity eccentric exercise. They perform only once a week for 12 weeks. We gradually increase the intensity. We didn't see any indication of muscle damage. But people who performed eccentric exercise, we can see greater increase in strength, 1 RM, maximal isometric strength, MVC ISO, or chair stand ability, also 8-foot up and go test, agility test, also one leg stand test. Okay? And also we can see improvement of the insulin sensitivity, also decreasing bad cholesterol, increasing good cholesterol, decreasing triglycerides. So, eccentric exercise improved muscle function, physical fitness, insulin sensitivity, and blood provide better than concentric exercise training. So this is the stair walking study. So one group did ascending stair walking. They went up from first floor to sixth floor by stairs, then came back by elevator. Okay? Descending stair walking group went to the sixth floor by elevator, then came back by stairs. Okay? We gradually increased the repetitions. Okay? Final week, they did 24 repetitions, either going up or going down. But remember, they are waiting for the elevator, or they are in the elevator for 10 seconds or 20 seconds. This is the interval exercise. So then, as you can see, the right-hand side, this lady is laughing. It's easy exercise to going down than going up. And then heart rate during going down is much less than going up. Also, RP is lower, but this is very slow movement, only 1 step per second. So not so much increase RPE. Also, blood pressure is lower for going down than going up. Then after 12 weeks, we see decrease in heart rate or systolic blood pressure for descending stair walking group than ascending. Also, bone density, heel bone density increase only after descending stair walking exercise. And then MVC, chair stand ability, to 6 minutes walking ability, also the balance EOFS means that the kind of a center of gravity movement decreases more, which is more stable. We can see better improvement of muscle function after descending stair walking than ascending. Also, the insulin sensitivity and blood lipid profile improve better after descending than ascending stair walking. So it means that the easier exercise, descending stair walking, is a better exercise to improve health and fitness. And also we can do eccentric lunge walk. As you can see, this person is doing eccentric lunge walk on the street. Okay? So we ask them to do, they are normal walkers, they walk a lot. But we implement eccentric lunge walk in their daily walking routines. Okay? So if someone is doing this one on the street, really strange. But we try to make cultural changes. Everybody should doing this one on the street. Okay, if traffic is not heavy. Then we can gradually increase the number of eccentric lunge steps over 8 weeks. Then first 4 weeks, they didn't do any eccentric walking. Then we found that also they are encouraged to use stairs on the slopes as much as possible. Then we saw no change in the first 4 weeks for muscle strength, chair standability, or sit and reach flexibility. Also, the right-hand side, that is the cognitive function test, did not change. And also C1Q is an indicator of sarcopenia in the blood, no change. But after implementing eccentric lunge walk, everything is improved. So eccentric walking provides extra effect to the health and fitness markers. Yeah. So we have to do eccentric walking. Actually, I'm doing eccentric walking on the street, okay? Not here in Portugal yet, but maybe tomorrow morning I should do that. Okay, so importance of skeletal muscle and the function on health. So we are talking about dynapenia, nice presentation by Sandro. So dynapenia, sarcopenia, powerpenia can increase fatigue and increase in discomfort during exercise. That can reduce physical activity, also stimulate the muscle. Then that creates a vicious cycle. We have more sarcopenia, dynapenia, and powerpenia. Then that can lead to the lots of chronic diseases. Because of muscle problem can cause energy consumption decrease, bone mineral density decrease, stimulus to brain decrease, causing dementia, and also the metabolic syndrome could occur, insulin resistance occur to lead to diabetes, risk of coronary heart disease could be increased. So everything is starting from muscle, skeletal muscle. Skeletal muscle dysfunction causes many chronic diseases. So we have to have a very important to keep muscles. To do that, eccentric exercise could be good. And also the eccentric exercise could improve the clinical population quality of life. So this is the heart failure patient. Heart failure is a problem with the heart. But if problem with the heart occurs, that can atrophy skeletal muscles. Atrophy of the skeletal muscle has a negative effect to the heart. So we have to find a way how we can stimulate the muscle without stressing the heart. Then we are doing eccentric exercise. So especially this is eccentric cycling. This is a heart failure patient. He's very skinny, but he's doing eccentric cycling easily. Then we can improve his muscle strength. Then we can improve his muscle function. And he can eventually walk more. Then we can improve his heart function. We found that for this one, the data. So one group did concentric cycling, one group did eccentric cycling, heart failure patient. We can have better effect of the 30-second sit and stand test or time up and go test either hand side. And then eccentric training group showed better improvement. So greater improvement in the walking ability, muscle strength, agility, mental health were observed after eccentric than concentric cycling training with a heart failure patient. Also, this is COPD patient. COPD have a capacity, very limited capacity of the exercise, but we match the RPE between eccentric and concentric cycling training. Then you can see red one, eccentric cycling can perform much, much greater work than concentric cycling. Even so, heart rate is much less. Also the dysphonia did not occur so much after eccentric cycling. Then after several weeks of the eccentric cycling, it's 12 weeks, we can see improvement of the lower limb fat-free mass. It's muscle mass increase only after eccentric cycling group. Also, 60 minutes walking time improved, distance improved eccentric only group. Time up and go test, also rate of force development, and also quality of life, well-being scores improved better for eccentric cycling than concentric cycling group. Yeah, so eccentric cycling could be a very good intervention for COPD patients. And also we have a lot of problem for the dementia, Alzheimer's disease, okay? So, but we believe eccentric exercise could be better because that can stimulate the brain better. And then eventually it can, could be a very good prevention on dementia and Alzheimer's disease. In fact, we did an eccentric training study for older people. When we did the eccentric versus stretching exercise, eccentric training group showed much better improvement in all of the cognitive function tests. Okay? And then also eccentric exercise could be used for rehabilitation of the stroke. So this is the Gary. He cannot use his right arm, okay, because of the stroke, but he is training his left arm, which is stronger arm. Then we can see improvement of his right arm, okay? Because the cross-education effect still exists. So we are trying to do the stroke patient for the impaired arm, just keep it as it is, but training for the non-impaired arm or leg. Yeah. And then this can be used for the injury rehabilitation. So after immobilization, we can see massive decrease in muscle mass, strength, and range of motion. Then long time to recover. But when we can do eccentric training for the non-immobilized leg or arm, then we can shorten the time for the recovery. And also when we do the training, we have less muscle damage. So we should do training even during the immobilization, focusing on non-immobilized leg or arm. So just putting them together, eccentric exercise have a negative aspect, which cause delayed onset muscle soreness and prolonged loss of muscle function. But muscle damage can be minimized by using preconditioning exercise and gradually increase the intensity of volume. Muscle damage is not necessary. Okay, more pain, no pain, more gain. Then a lot of positive aspects like less metabolic demand, greater force production ability, less fatigability, less decrease with aging. Also, I didn't tell you so much about less intensity. In order to increase muscle strength, we normally need like a 60% MVC, that kind of stimulus. But eccentric, even 20% or less than 20% eccentric contraction still increase strength and still increase muscle mass, probably due to the shear stress. Okay? Then if we are continuing eccentric exercise, we have a lot of effect. Muscle function improved, muscle mass also increased, coordination, balance, flexibility, walking ability, bone density, insulin sensitivity, blood lipid profile, and cardiovascular function, and brain health. So we should be doing eccentric exercise more. For eccentric, we don't know yet, but as I can say, shear stress is one of the possible mechanisms. Also better stimulus the brain. Also we can strengthen tendon. And also in the eccentric exercise, we could produce some myokines more than concentric exercise. Then that could affect whole body organs. So we're still working on this hypothesis, why eccentric is good. We don't know the whole picture yet, but probably combination of these, okay? So how much time do I still have? Like 10 minutes, okay?
Yeah, until 45.
Okay, yes, good. Okay, so then application to the various professions. So eccentric exercise can be used to improve competency, fitness, fatigue reduction, recovery, injury prevention, health. Okay? Then, especially for the soldiers, the firefighters, nurse, actors, actress, eccentric exercise could be very good. Okay? Then increasing athletes. So I found this picture last night. So so some Portuguese players. Okay. So when we are playing team sports, especially, we have lots of eccentric contraction when we are changing direction or stopping, right? So the more eccentric contraction we perform, we see decrease in strength and power during the match, and also endurance is affected toward the end of the match. Then performance decrease, then we cannot win. Okay? So also muscle damage is occurred. Then they are suffering from that damage in next days. They can do the good training next days, or they cannot recover. They cannot kind of perform better in the next match. So what we have to do is eccentric training can improve strength, power, and endurance, and then we can have a performance improvement. Also, we can prevent injuries. So we have to do eccentric training for the athletes as well. So muscle damage occurs, but not so much damage occurs after basketball. Recovery is only 1 day after basketball match. For tennis, it takes a little bit longer, 2 to 3 days to recover. But soccer, it takes longer, about 4 to 5 days. This is the university soccer players, may not be the professional players. But now, World Cup soccer is every 5 or 6, 7 days apart, which is good. But when we just checked the interval between matches in the previous World Cup soccer for female ladies, so as you can see, soccer 2 to 7 days for men, 3 to 7 days for women. Olympic a little bit shorter, okay? So that time frame may not be enough for them to recover, perform very well, especially the previous matches a little longer or more intensive. Yeah. So actually, interestingly, this is the World Cup female soccer 2023. So we have quarter final, semi-final, final, and the third place determination match, 8 matches. Among 8 matches, okay, 5 out of 6 matches were won by the team that had longer resting from previous match. So even 1 day, they are resting longer, they have advantage. But it is not possible to have an equal resting time for all of the teams. So we need to consider how we can recover faster after match. Okay? And then one of the strategies would be eccentric training. So this is the actual training you saw for the rugby players. So they did some maximal eccentric training for 6 weeks. Then they have a Ramadan break for 6 weeks. Then they have a little bit high intensity eccentric training for 3 weeks. Then we found that very good improvement of the eccentric strength from the 1 to 2, 26.7%. But during the Ramadan break, they didn't do any resistance training, but we are somewhat maintained strength, only 6% decrease in strength. Then after more high-intensity eccentric training, 21.8% increase in eccentric strength. So overall, we found that 4% increase in strength, which is huge. They are kind of professional players, okay? And the concentric strength also improved, but not as large as eccentric because specificity of the training. Then, importantly, we could see improvement of speed, agility, also less injuries. Then because of that, they won South Asian tournament, first time in their history. They are very happy, but they didn't continue this training. So next time they attended this championship, they lost in the first round. Yeah, so they should be doing eccentric training more. And also the cycling. Cycling is the more concentric exercise, okay? So cycling are concentric actions, so this is Tour de France. So, but we can do eccentric cycling training. So in the eccentric cycling, we can have higher intensity, okay? For example, this is the eccentric training. So this is my PhD student several years ago. So he is demonstrating eccentric cycling. So now it is switch on. This is cyclist 2. He can do eccentric cycling. But for this cycling, he can produce 300 to 500, not very difficult. And his heart rate is not very high. Okay? So he does this training only once a week. And then he does normal cycling training, 3 or 4 times a week. Then we can see eccentric training can improve concentric cycling performance. For example, this is a little bit different study, but we use different bicycle. Then this one is not a kind of a continuous exercise, more intermittent exercise. But when we do eccentric cycling training, we can see much better improvement of the concentric power. So as you can see, even the road cycling, last 200 meters or 500 meters, you can have more power, you can win. So in order to improve power, eccentric cycling is very beneficial. Also, the squat jump, counter movement jump improved only after eccentric cycling training. But VO2 max improved better for the concentric training. So maybe we should consider doing eccentric cycling training in the hypoxic condition. That may be solution for doing everything improvement. Okay. And also this is the kayak athletes. So this is the sprint kayak, 200 meters. So they did eccentric only bench press, bench row, chin up. The other group did traditional eccentric concentric. Then we found that eccentric only training showed improvement of the racing time and also improvement of all of the strengths. But if we are doing both eccentric concentric, no improvement of the kayak performance time. Also, this is the skaters. So as you can see, this is ice skaters. So they are very strong. Okay, they are doing one leg eccentric contraction. Okay, then going side kick, then standing up with 2 legs. They are allowed to do 2 legs. So we are investigating the eccentric training using body weight for ice skaters. Actually, so far, we found very good improvement for the ice skating performance. And also, this is the eccentric training. One is using more motor, one is flywheel. So it should be different participants, but this demonstration. So when we are doing only one leg squat exercise, like lunge exercise, other leg is on the chair or box. Okay, still moving, but not doing eccentric contraction so much. Then we found that the leg, which did not do any eccentric training, still improved strength very well. The person who showed very good strength for the trained leg also showed good improvement of the non-trained leg. So cross-education effect there. Okay? So we found that that is interesting. So then we thought that maybe when we trained athletes, it is better to do unilateral training than bilateral. So this is in order to investigate that. Then we found that in order to improve each leg strength, definitely unilateral training should be done. But in order to improve both legs strengths together, then either bilateral or unilateral have the same effect. Okay? But most of the sports, we use more one leg than others, right? 2 legs. So in that case, we need to focus on unilateral eccentric training. And also, in order to prevent injuries, we often do Nordic hamstring exercise. But even doing a Nordic hamstring exercise, we cannot prevent muscle injuries perfectly. We still have some damage. Why? So we try to investigate the relationship between Nordic hamstring exercise and eccentric strength. We didn't find any good relationship between the eccentric strength measured by isokinetic dynamometer and also the Nordic hamstrings performance, especially the force measured at the ankle. Okay? So it means that the Nordic hamstring exercise may not be necessarily eccentric training. So in order to prevent injury, we have a different type of eccentric exercise for the knee flexors. Also, we need to consider fast Nordic hamstring exercise. When you are doing Nordic hamstring very slowly, more isometric contraction for the knee flexors. But when you are doing fast, then you can, especially for the toward end, you can stretch the muscles, which is really dangerous, okay, in a way, but that can increase eccentric strength. Then that can prevent muscle injuries better. So this is a review article. Eccentric training can be a good exercise to improve strength, power, and speed performance. Also, eccentric training is better to improve changeable direction and speed. So eccentric training, even for a different direction, we can improve power. Yeah. So for Powerpenia prevention, eccentric training is very important, I think. So this is a very nice article. Maybe I don't have enough time to go through, but eccentric training can prevent injuries and also improve the cognitive function, brain function. Eventually, you can increase strength and prevent injuries. So today, I was talking about eccentric is very good, but what is truth or what is fact? That is not necessarily clear. So because there are many facts, someone is doing the same, exactly same study as I did, then maybe the result will be different. So that's why it is very interesting, exciting to do research, and also coach athletes or educate students, because everybody's response is different, okay? So if maybe this training can provide everybody gold medal, that is not interesting at all. Some responders, we have to think about many things. So this is already pendulum. So I say, eccentric is good. I tried to swing this pendulum to this direction today, but definitely someone said Ken is wrong. What Ken said is not correct. Negative effect. I accept that. And also the research is a systematic process of collecting, analyzing information data to increase our understanding of the phenomena, which is science. So research is everyone's business. Coaches and medical practitioners, athletes, scientists, all of us need research. Then I like this quote. Einstein said, the most important thing is never to stop questioning. Okay, this is a very important quote. And also, I like this slide. I always show my PhD student for the first day this slide. So in order to be success, you need to be persistent. Okay, and also you have a lot of failure, sacrifice, disappointment, but you have to discipline yourself, and hard work, dedication is necessary. That cannot be seen, but that is a key for the success. Okay, and also you cannot beat a person who never gives up. I like this one too. And also, I like this quote. Today is the first day of the rest of your life. I'm getting old. My rest of life is not so long. But actually, never too late. So this is the 10,000-hour rule. There are many interpretations for this rule. But you are spending 6 hours a day, every day for 5 hours, 5 years. This is about 10,000 hours. Then you could be the person who you want to be in 5 years. So do not give up. Do your best. Okay, start now. Okay, so believe in yourself and do not give up. You can do it, right? Yeah. So last slide. Okay, so this is the Nobel Prize winner in 1950, Bertrand Russell. He said, "Do not fear to be eccentric in your opinion. For every opinion now accepted was once eccentric." This is true, right? So for any technological advancement or any theory advancement, it used to be eccentric. So also Albert Einstein said, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. Also he said, common sense is the collection of prejudices acquired by age 18. So we need to be eccentric in a way. So also Steve Jobs said, the ones who is crazy enough to think that they can change the world can change the world. Okay? So I would like to say, by becoming eccentric person, then I should say be eccentric. This is important for research, coaching, everything. So that's why we need to let's get eccentric. So thank you very much for your attention. Obrigado. So I'm sorry, it spent a little bit more time than used to be. I mean, that applied. But I'm happy to answer any questions. And also, I'll be here tomorrow, that after tomorrow. You can ask me any question anytime. Okay? Thank you very much for your attention.
Big clap, big clap, big clap. Thank you, Professor Ken Nozaka. This was a wonderful presentation. Very eccentric, okay, let me say like this. Anyone who has any question to make eccentrically.
Yeah. So there.
Yes.
Oh, thank
I
you.
will
Yeah,
do,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Slow, okay. Go.
Thank you so much for your
Yeah, thank you.
amazing presentation and practical. So my question is about the optimal dose of this type of training. And for example, how we can individualize this type of training in different population, like in athlete setting, in adult population or in adolescents. And for example, in resistance training, about the intensity, about the overloading. For example, how much overloading is enough about eccentric training?
Yeah.
And to maximize the adaptation that you already mentioned about oxygen consumption and cognitive function, to maximize this adaptation and to minimize the injury risk, what are the optimal dose and how can it be individual in different population?
Right.
Thank you so much.
That's a great question. So compared to the concentric traditional training, we don't know much about eccentric training actual protocols yet. Okay, but as I said, eccentric training, even very small amount, low intensity, can still have effect. And also, we have to follow the progressive overload principle. So we can start very low intensity, then gradually increase the intensity, but not very suddenly increase, gradually increase. Then even small amount, and then frequency, for example, once a week would be enough for the like a gym type of eccentric training. But just using a body weight, it may be better to do every day. So depending on the population, depending on the purpose, so we can modify it. But let's say, if they feel any pain after eccentric exercise, that indicates that some damage occurred, so it may be better to just rest. So, for example, I prescribe eccentric exercise to older people. Sometimes they get sore. Then I say, congratulations. Okay, your body is telling you how lazy you have been. Okay, so this is the time you need to start doing eccentric exercise regularly. Okay, so then, so not necessarily you have to do a lot, but a little bit more than before, then you can continue it. So I think in coming to your question, what is the optimal kind of dose of eccentric training? We don't know yet, but we have to just see the individuals carefully, then whether they are doing eccentric contraction correctly, and also whether their response, they feel a little bit too much or too little, then we can modify the amount of the exercise. Yeah. But actually, one thing, but we cannot use the typical RM table because normally they say we have 10 RM. Eccentric contraction can do much, much more. But even we can do more contractions for eccentric exercise, but we should also follow the traditional 1 RM table to start with. But in order to maximize the potential outcomes from eccentric training, we can do more. But that could be more to the athletic population or well-trained people. Okay? Yeah.
It's about mTOR signaling. mTOR signaling. as you
Yes,
mentioned.
yeah.
And another aspect of your work was about longevity. And as I know, mTOR signaling, if it is activated more than it is,
Yeah.
it can accelerate aging.
Oh,
So,
mTOR accelerate aging.
do you
Okay.
think this type of training, accelerating training, can activate aging? I know that you mentioned that it can decelerate aging,
Yeah.
but in this case we have different mechanism,
Okay.
like nervous system adaptation and muscular adaptation. Which one comes to the priority
Okay.
in this case?
I see.
Do you think that one can accelerate or decelerate the aging or longevity?
Okay. So, sorry. I'm sorry for my ignorance, but I didn't know mTOR can enhance aging. So you're saying mTOR is not good, right? Yeah, but actually, in order to increase protein synthesis, mTOR is one of the key molecules, right? So maybe in coming to the muscle, maybe increase mTOR by eccentric contraction is not bad. It is good. But when we are talking about whole body aging, okay, but aging, one of the aging is occurring to the skeletal muscle. Then we can have a weak skeletal muscle and not functioning skeletal muscle. Then that can decrease the health span, healthy aging. So then even they can have longer life, but they may be spending a lot of time in the bed. That is not ideal. So I think if they are active, okay, then until they die, they are still active. That is an ideal situation. So I play tennis. My dream is to die on a tennis court. Okay, so I tell my wife, I go to tennis, and unfortunately I die on the tennis court. That is my ideal death. But I mean, that is kind of too much. But actually, yeah, so older people, they can still be very active. They can move. They can travel to whenever they like. Then, if something wrong happens at that time, they may be happy. Not just living long. Living long in a bed is not happy, in my opinion. Okay? So if mTOR has a negative effect on aging, longevity, that may not be bad, in my opinion. Okay? Yeah.
Well, we have to come with the program. We have to close.
Okay.
Professor
Sorry,
Nozaka,
yeah, yeah.
thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
So
it's
I'm
always a
yeah,
pleasure.
I'm available during the conference, yeah? So ask me any question, or maybe you can email me any questions if you have, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Big clap for Professor Nozaka. Let's now make like 15 minutes rest to pee, to poo, and to drink some water, and then come back with a lot of energy. We'll have our sponsors, okay? We'll make their presentation about their technology. Let's see what it is. 15 minutes.